Our speaker tonight is Hari Lambda. He is a PhD engineer with over 40 years of experience, and he has recently published a book about a brighter climate future, not only here in California, but everywhere in the world. And he's a climate activist, and we're so thrilled to have him here with us, and he'll tell us about his book, his findings, and by the way, I think his book would make a great Christmas present for all your friends. So with that, Hari, take it away.
Thank you,
Liz.
This whole activity is intended to provide a global energy and economic transition to renewable energy and reduce greenhouse and gas emissions enough to to solve climate change and rejuvenate our ecosystems in a way that provides a good life to all of us, not just for the few. And so that's what the central theme of this is. I was basically retired, moved from Illinois, where I was active with the Sierra Club, and moved here. We moved to be closer to our kids and grandkids, and who live in Albany. And I did a reasonably good job, so I'm a little comfortable financially, and I didn't really have to stay active. But the thing about it is that I just, when I understand so much and I know what we can do, I just couldn't just sit and do nothing because I care. And I guess, so I could be just off enjoying myself, but I figured that since I care, I can't have a good conscience if I don't do something about it. And so that's what I decided. And one always has, of course, a little bit of a personal reason is, I was figuring, I think my grandson, who's 4 years old, is a very smart little kiddo. I think 10 years from now, or even earlier than that, he's going to ask me the question. He's going to say, "Grandpa, you knew what to do. Why didn't you do something?" And 10 years from now, I'll be most probably still suffering from an increasing consequences of climate change. And, my kiddo will be too. And so it's in that sense a self-enlightened self-interest issue, and so basically, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has told us that we need to do certain things in order to keep the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit global average. So I took that up as a goal, and I came up with the global plan. And what I'm presenting today is the California part of that plan. My book launch activity on November 17th, I had presented the global plan, and there are videos on YouTube out there for that. In a sense, what I present today will be, in a sense, a reflection of a microcosm of what's needed at the global level. And the hope here is California, being a leader in some of these activities, we'd be able to learn from California ourselves, since we are here, and teach, have it as a way of teaching the rest of the world, or at least sharing good information with the rest of the world. And so you'll find in my book some significant activities that have occurred and are occurring in California. The California and the European Union, as far as developed nations go, are in the lead as far as climate change solutions. So it's only good that we learn from those two locations. And So let me, in a sense, now go to sharing my screen, and I'll proceed with my the California part of my plan. Um, okay, can you see my screen? Hello?
Yes, yeah,
Yes, I can see it.
yeah.
Okay.
I muted everybody.
Yeah, I just wondered if you could see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Let me go actually to the mode where it occupies the whole um, um, there. I think it's occupying the whole screen now, so that it's a lot better view of. Um, so my talk today is, beyond fossil fuels to a clean, beautiful, and prosperous California. And let me share with you what those three terms mean to me. Clean means in terms of clean renewable energy, free of air pollution that is caused by fossil fuels, and have plenty of energy. Beautiful for me means a healthy ecosystems, biodiversity, and good carbon sinks, so that we can also be absorbing carbon. And that's, if you don't have that, you're not going to have beautiful beauty, natural beauty, without those components. And for me, prosperous means widespread prosperity. Once the private businesses and the big companies realize that renewable energy and hydrogen are good businesses, they're going to be jumping on the bandwagon. And my whole challenge is, how do you do the process in such a way that that it benefits everyone, and so in a sense, the principles of energy democracy and things like that are important. The good thing is, solar energy is there all over the world, so we have a good opportunity for a locality to be capturing solar energy locally and using it for its own use. And so there's a good opportunity that we can have the benefits of this transition to be beneficial for all. And as you can see, California is a pretty big state, all the way from north to the south, and has all kinds of ecosystems. It has mountainous ecosystems, coastal ecosystems, desert ecosystems, so it has just about everything, even some high snow covered mountains to some extent. So it has just about everything. So Brighter Climate Futures is the title I kind of selected for my book. It's supposed to be a proposed energy, climate, and ecosystem transformation plan. And it had those components. It said plenty of energy, solve climate change, and use and revive and rejuvenate ecosystems. One of my viewpoints here is, we've talked about sustainability. Sustainability is a good word environmentally, but it kind of implies that things should be done so that the natural world can sustain the damage we are doing to it. I think we have to proceed beyond that. I think we have to go to rejuvenability. We have to positively undertake, because we've done so much destruction. We not only have to stop destruction, we have to proceed to the point of rejuvenating things, making things much better. And in that sense, so this is basically what it is. And California, part of it is a section on the chapter of my book, which includes a detailed plan for the United States and a detailed plan on how you can do the practical implementation of the Green New Deal. You take the 14 clauses of the legislation for the Green New Deal, how you can practically implement each of those 14 clauses in the Green New Deal. That's in that chapter. But anyway, California is included in that particular chapter. Ooh. For some reason, it's not advancing. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, here we go. All right, so that's the book that I have put together. I luckily have found a very good publisher for this book called Regent Press, locally here in Berkeley. He's an awesome individual by the name of Mr. Mark Wyman, and he did a really good job. And anyway, this book has 13 chapters in it and just covers all the different aspects that you can think of. I've tried to include most of the aspects in this talk. I have a whole bunch of questions here, but I'm not going to read all of them. But the answer to all of these questions is yes. Can we meet greenhouse gas reductions? Can we electrify everything possible? Can we store commercial quantities of renewable energy and solar energy? Can we transform the transportation to zero emissions? How do we handle oil refineries and natural gas production? Can we get a handle on wildfires, which have been very severe for California? Can we restore and expand land ecosystem, not just the forests, but all the land ecosystems? Can we restore and expand the coastal ecosystems? Can we transform agriculture to a regenerative mode, going from this very destructive green revolution agriculture, which uses herbicides, pesticides, and chemical fertilizer, and tillage, um, and lots of water, and go to a regenerative agriculture? Can all these transformations be done in such a way so as to benefit everybody? I would say that a climate recovery plan that encompasses a COVID recovery plan would be an ideal way to come out of this COVID-19 crisis. Can California be a leader? Yeah, absolutely. We can be an innovator in technologies and in new ways of doing things. The rest of the world has not been standing still while we have been concentrating our Department of Energy talking about the efficiency of fossil fuels. The rest of the world, especially developed worlds, Japan, Australia, Scandinavian countries, even China have not been standing behind. So technologically, if we don't try to start moving, California and the United States are actually going to be left behind. And we are just going to be, it's going to be bad for us if we don't start to get our act together really quick on clean energy and the climate transformation. As it transforms, does it take care of incomes, housing, health, justice, and safety? Those are Green New Deal aspects. But climate change solutions that we talk about actually impact all of those areas. And lastly, do ecosystem expansions give greater wildlife, beauty, and livelihoods? The answer to all those questions is actually yes. It all depends on to the extent to which we proceed with it. And so California the beautiful. When I was in Illinois, I landed as a young Sikh boy from India in 1970, but both had Urbana-Champaign, where I went to grad studies. And then when I worked in Illinois, California was always a place that you really look forward to visit. So here I'm showing you Muir Woods, some of the redwood trees at Muir Woods, I believe, and then the Golden Gate Bridge. And so when we were out there, we would love to think in terms of visiting the forests, the coasts, the desert ecosystems, the agriculture. We looked forward to attending, to visiting all of that. And the first thing I did when I graduated in 1977 with my PhD, I took a month off and I started from Illinois and went all the way along the north and then all down the west coast. But the first place I made it a point to stop was the Redwood National Forest, where we have these huge redwood trees, some of them, 1,000 to 2,000 years old. And some of them you could drive your car through. And anyways, and then coming down all the way through the coast and so forth, it was just such a pleasure. The coastal beauty was so awesome. The Golden Gate Bridge was really good. And anyway, so come 1985, after I got married and had a little boy, um, here I am. This is what I looked like in 1985. I was 37 years old, and I have on my shoulders my little son, um, who lives in Albany now, and we really enjoyed Yosemite. We got lucky because one of the colleagues of one of our friends canceled out from a cabin reservation. So we got to visit Yosemite in '85, and it was just an awesome place. And I really wanted to thank all of the people, and I know the founders of Sierra Club have been active in trying to preserve Yosemite for future generations. And I really wanted to thank. At that time, I didn't know too much of who actually did it, but I really now want to thank the founders of the Sierra Club, who had a great hand in preserving Yosemite and other national and state parks. But after we moved in in 2017 from Illinois after retiring, California's forests are burning. We are in a really tough situation. This is the glass fire at Calistoga, California. This photo is by Josh Edelson. We've had it's been going up exponentially. Since 2017 to 2018. 2018, we had the Paradise Fire, which within a few hours destroyed an entire town, the town of Paradise, Illinois. It's the number of fires, the acreages, have been growing astronomically. So we really need, so we really need to get a handle on the situation. The impact of climate change on California has been pretty significant. Besides wildfires, we've experienced droughts, heat waves, agricultural losses, and surprisingly, in 2015, we had really heavy rains, and I heard there were floods and dams were about to break north of here and things like that, and landslides and so forth. So California, just like every country that I describe in my book, which is China, India, European Union, all of them have very severe impacts of climate change, and California is no exception. The southeastern part of the United States suffers from hurricanes, and the middle part of the United States has tornadoes, and all of them have been worsening. California's achievements and status. California has really done a really good job. It was one of the few entities, even the United States did not live up to its executive commitments because Congress and the Senate refused to ratify the Kyoto Protocol, which was, protocol is an action item attached to the global warming treaty, which says, okay, we're going to do something about it. And the premise was that these developed nations were going to get their emissions in either 2012 or somewhere by 2020 down to 1990 levels, by that particular year. And California was one of the few that actually achieved that. Having said that, in 2018, it was estimated that the forest fires added 45 million metric tons. So out of that 424 goal that we reached, we did have a worsening situation because of that. But the world's global emissions are at 45,000 million metric tons. So, you get an idea. California is the ninth. If it was a country, it would be the ninth largest economy in the world. In solar, wind, and geo, and hydro, and in renewable energy, California has done extremely well. California introduced a cap and trade program, which was supposed to take the amount of emissions, give a certain amount of allowances, that these entities were allowed to emit so much in terms of carbon or greenhouse gas emissions, and then their allowances would decrease year by year, so that the theory was that this would help to reduce carbon emissions. And there seems to have been some success. Maybe it reduced carbon emissions, I think, estimated about 7%. And the auctions for the allowances generate a greenhouse gas fund that basically was about $6 billion in 2018. And that's been used for a whole host of green, climate-related activities. California has led the country in car efficiency standards, corporate average fuel economy standards. We are the ones who push the rest of America, and thank God for that, because our cars are much more efficient and have been emitting less per mile driven. The unfortunate problem with cars is that the vehicle miles traveled have increased so much that it's kind of wiped out savings resulting from efficiency improvements. We are leader in electric vehicles in the United States, and we are leader in green hydrogen. Climate transformation. California's goals by 2045 and 2050, we have to keep the global average temperature rise below 1.5 Celsius. So what is California's contribution to it? California was one of the few entities that announced that it would have 100% net zero carbon electricity by 2045. Carbon neutrality and decarbonization are words that also mean net zero. Net zero means how much you're emitting in carbon you're absorbing somewhere else. The greenhouse gas reduction targets from 1990 levels were supposed to be 40% down by 2030, according to a particular assembly bill, and then 80% down by 2050. What I'm proposing, which I'm proposing also for the rest of the world, is in my transportation plan, is that carbon emissions need to be down 100% by the year 2050, as advised by the IPCC. Methane emissions need to be down 50%, and nitrous oxide by 25% in order to keep the temperature rise below 1.5 Celsius. Here was California's, I made it a point to make sure that my plan is quantitatively adequate and time bound. So basically, I've done this for every national, or in this case, California entity. I look at the 2017 actual energy use. It was actually 2.3 petawatt hours. Petawatt hours is about 2.3 billion kilowatt hours. Anyway, I've converted other energy units. There's a whole bunch of engineering units for energy. I converted them into electrical. The US has about 30 petawatt hours in terms of energy use. So we use about 8%. Anyway, as of 2017, 45% of our energy use, total energy use, was oil, and 28% was natural gas. And so we are 71%, 73% dependent on fossil fuels as of the present moment. The world is about 81%, because the world is still using coal. So the world is, we are, as of now, a fossil fuel civilization. If we didn't have the diesel truck delivering food to our grocery store, we won't have food. We would, as a civilization, collapse. So what I'm proposing is over a 30-year period, a very organized transformation, step by step, all the way to 2050. We do this in an organized fashion, we're going to come out ahead, and we'll be much better off. The California energy plan, this is what I'm proposing for 2050. We still go from 2.3 to 3.64. So we have expanded energy use. We do it with 15% wind, which is the blue part of the pie chart. 38%, which is the brown part, which is solar energy. 25% with energy efficiency. The European Union and California have done a really good job with energy efficiency, which means a systematic way of how do you reduce energy demand. If you can do a building, the same building, with accomplish all the tasks of that building with 25% less energy, why not? And it can be done, and so that's what needs to be done. It is a good strategy. 9% is what called renewable storage, and I'll talk about what renewable storage is. It's storage of renewable energy. Here's what, if you take a coal-fired power plant, what would you replace it with? You have to have a good plan of what do you replace a coal-fired power plant with, or even a natural gas power plant in California. So I'm proposing that we replace it with SPH type of system, which is a solar, battery, and hydrogen system. The renewable power plant concept goes like this, as per this diagram, is you have a solar PV power plant that during the day charges a large battery system. So for example, if you have a 100 megawatt solar power plant, you would have a 60 megawatt battery system. And during the initial stages, before you get the other technology to kick in, at night you would use a natural gas power plant to keep the electricity running at night. And so that electricity would go to the grid. But you would only turn the natural gas power plant at night, assuming the technology is of the type that you can vary the energy, day and night. But what I'm proposing is that the solar PV power plant be oversized, and so it be generating hydrogen using electrolysis. You take water and you take 2 electrodes in it, and you're going to get hydrogen from one and oxygen from the other. And water is hydrogen oxide. That's simple chemistry, which I know all of us know. Water is H2O. H2O is hydrogen oxide. And so we take hydrogen and we store it on site, and we have a hydrogen power plant that we turn on at night. So we shut down the natural gas power plant, turn on the hydrogen power plant, which uses hydrogen that has been stored, the stored form of renewable energy. That's why I call it renew storage. And the electricity goes into the grid. Here's an example of something that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. So I'm not talking just in terms of impracticalities. Here's something that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power has actually signed up to, is a replacement of an 1800 megawatt Utah power plant, where they're importing electricity from this coal plant in Utah, but because of California's environmental and energy goals, is going to be replaced with a renewable energy come hydrogen power plant, so that by 2025, the 1800 megawatt coal power plant would be replaced with an 840 megawatt natural gas plus 30%, the gas turbine would run on 30% hydrogen to begin with. The hydrogen would be produced, would be stored in these using local renewable energy resources that are available and stored in these salt caverns. On the left, you can see the picture. There are these huge salt caverns, which are the size of the Empire State Building. And so they would be producing excess hydrogen and storing it in these salt caverns. And you can see at the lower part of the picture, left-hand side, all the different kinds of renewable energies that are available at the Delta plant location in Utah. They have wind, they have geothermal, they have solar. And so they would be then, using that to generate hydrogen and store it. And by 2045, their plan says that they would have 100% hydrogen gas turbines, and a couple of manufacturers, General Electric and Mitsubishi, have signed up to do that. The other example I wanted to give was approximately 260, it was being proposed to set up a 260 megawatt peaker power plant at Puente, a natural gas power plant. And a peaker power plant is one that when you have excess demand, like we had, for example, this summer, where you have a heat wave, and so you get all the air conditioners turn on. It's a peaker plant that turns on, and you can fire up and use in order to meet your peak demand. But anyway, that was actually the local geographic entities, nonprofits actually fought that really hard. And so it was replaced with a battery power plant, 100 megawatt battery power plant, plus it could be solar added to it also if needed. So these are things are actually going into the works. And there are 62 large solar power plants in the whole world, in excess of 200 megawatt. To give you a power idea, 200 megawatt is about the size of one nuclear reactor in a nuclear power facility. Usually there are 4 or 5 reactors, and 200 megawatt is the size of a nuclear power plant. And there are 62 facilities. Many of them are 2,000 megawatt or 2 gigawatt in size. One of them is in India, and the largest one as of January 2020 was in India, in the central part of India. And anyway, there's like 500 to 600 megawatt facilities that are solar power plants spread throughout the United States. So these are functioning ones. And the good thing is the cost has come down. The cost of a new power plant is only $1,000 per kilowatt for a solar power plant, $2,500 for a coal-fired power plant, $66,000 for a nuclear power plant. So it's really solar the cost has come down and is continuing to decrease very rapidly. So the California energy transformation I'm talking about, and the point I want to make there is I did a calculation for the world's energy consumption for 2017. And I calculated that less than 1%, solar panels on less than 1% of the Earth's land area can produce all of the world's energy, not just the electricity, all of the world's energy. And so we have getting plenty of solar energy throughout the world, plus the costs are coming down. So there's going to be plenty of clean renewable energy for expanding needs. We shouldn't use renewable energy to meet our expanding needs while continuing to use fossil fuels. We should be continuously, the strategy must be, we should replace fossil fuels, both in electric power generation, rest of the economy, with renewable energy. We should electrify everything, and then the extra electricity should be with additional renewable energy power plants. We might need to expand transmission unless we locate these power plants really close to the city, or like solar, have them within the city. We can store renewable energy in batteries. We can store renewable energy in hydrogen and ammonia. And we can have a new concept that I've talked about, solar electric hydrogen highways and roadways. So here's how you would produce green hydrogen and ammonia. It would be basically a solar PV power plant. So instead of having a power plant for generating electricity, you would have a power plant here that would basically be making hydrogen and ammonia. And I'll talk a little bit about ammonia. So the power plant would basically take water, and with an electrolyzer would generate hydrogen, and you would store hydrogen as a gas or a liquid. Our air consists of oxygen and consists of nitrogen, which is about 78% of the air you're breathing right now is 78% is nitrogen. You would have an air separator, and you would separate nitrogen, and then you would use solar energy in a reactor to join nitrogen to hydrogen, and you would generate ammonia. Ammonia, it turns out, is a very good way to store hydrogen as well as a fuel for itself. Ammonia can replace fuel on ships, and Scandinavian countries actually have a project to make this happen in a few years from now. Hydrogen and ammonia are gases that the world knows how to use in big quantities. We use 170 million metric tons of hydrogen, mostly to refine oil, and then we use ammonia as a fertilizer. But this ammonia and hydrogen today emit 800 million metric tons of greenhouse gases because they make it out of natural gas and coal. If we made it this way, that would be the first thing. We produce green hydrogen and green ammonia from renewable energy. This is called the duck curve. CAISO is the California Independence System Operator. CAISO is the one that every 5 minutes, even as we're speaking, every 5 minutes, CAISO, what it's doing is it's importing and exporting electricity. It's the actual operator of the whole electrical system of California. And it buys, imports electricity, exports electricity to other states, and it's continuously buying and so on. Well, California, it came up with this word called the duck curve, the term, and the duck curve became pretty famous. And the duck curve meant something like this: over a 24-hour period, the red curve up on top is the customer demand. In the middle of the day, as the solar energy climbs in, all of a sudden, the renewable energy or the natural gas power plant would need to ramp down rapidly. And as the sun set, they would, the non-renewable power plant would have to ramp up rapidly. And this shape actually looked a little bit like the back of a duck. So, but they said this was a real problem. Having too much solar energy would be a problem. So I said, okay, let's take a look at it. And I said, so my solution to the duck curve was to come up with a hump curve. The hump curve, you know, is the camels have the hump curve. But my solution was, okay, what you do is you have an oversized power plant, and during the day you recharge a battery system, large size battery system, and then you also produce hydrogen as per my flow diagram that I showed you, and you store hydrogen on site, and you use that hydrogen in the evening to keep your electricity flowing at night through hydrogen generators, either fuel cell or gas turbines or, you know, other technologies. So anyway, this was, so the objective I want to say is, if you can store large amounts of renewable energy in these portable, dense, non-carbon fuels like hydrogen and ammonia, we are home free actually, because we're going to have so much energy and it's all going to be clean, you know. These are the four, I'm not going to get into the details of this, but there are 4 organizations that handle the energy and climate aspects. And I've just recently been educating myself about that. In fact, yesterday I had even called Dave McCord to educate myself a little bit more. And thanks, Dave, for educating me. CPUC, or the California Public Utilities Commission, regulates the utilities. California Energy Commission looks at long-range energy types of things. CAISO, I just talked to you about, and CARB, which is the California Air Resources Board, looks at air pollution, greenhouse gases, and manages a cap and trade program. Anyway, these organizations are pretty good, doing a pretty good job, but I think they'll need to up, just like California will need to up their ambitions to meet California's climate and energy goal. Now, things that you can touch and feel. My favorite thing is, if we can set up demonstration projects, have demonstration projects where you can go touch, feel, and see, and look at the benefits, as well as establish the economics, study the economics, we will have a lot of success. And so here's a solar electric vehicle charging station in the city of San Rafael that has been set up by MCE, which is Marine Clean Energy, which is a community choice aggregate facility. And in California, it was the first time I was exposed to it. A CCA like MCE, you can, on your electric bill, can say, I want 50% or 100% of my energy from a renewable source. And then in the local area, MCE would provide you with that. Anyway, MCE set up this vehicle charging station. So during the day, you would be directly charging your car with solar energy. And the rest of the time it's attached to the grid. So the car would be charged the normal, you know, what we are used to, the normal way, by grid charging. Here in close to downtown San Francisco is a green hydrogen refueling station that I visited and took a photo of. And green hydrogen in California is defined not only by producing using renewable energy, but also by using biogas to produce hydrogen. I think it still has some carbon dioxide emissions, and I still have to understand to what extent biogas versus renewable energy is green. But anyways, this actually costs about $16 a kilogram, although my friend Chris Peoples, who runs AC Transit, runs fuel cell buses in our local area and is very highly appreciative of fuel cell buses. They actually perform better than diesel buses. They have a hydrogen tank on the roof, and I was almost going to include a photograph of a fuel cell bus. But anyways, they pay $8 a kilogram. A kilogram is about a gasoline gallon equivalent, GGE. So if the price of hydrogen can come down to $3 a GGE, it would be economical to replace, gasoline with hydrogen. And Chris Peoples was saying that has educated me, and this makes good sense. I think the way the technologies are developing with a come down in electrolysis, electrolyzer costs and all that, that this is pretty doable. So here's the concept I talked about in terms of solar electric hydrogen highways. Basically, to introduce this concept to you, you would have somewhat like a rest area. All of you are, I think, live in the United States, so you're familiar with the rest area. You would pull into a rest area, which would have be surrounded by a decent sized solar power plant, in this case, maybe just a 10 megawatt power plant. And you would be doing, just like that MCE site, you'd be doing during the day, direct charging your car with solar energy. You'd have a battery system on site that would kick in the evening. The whole system would still be grid tied. So if during the day there was surplus solar energy, it would feed it into the grid. And during the night, it could be still pulling in electricity, from the grid. But you could also have an electrolyzer on site generating hydrogen, which would do two things. It could be generating electricity at night, and it could be fueling fuel cell vehicles. And fuel cell vehicles are becoming more common in California. And the California Energy Commission has set up 100 hydrogen refueling stations in California. And we need to expand the green hydrogen stations, quite a bit. So here's a concept of solar electric hydrogen highways. Now, hydrogen here could be supplied from that other solar power plant that generates only hydrogen and ammonia. So you could have a truck. Instead of pulling up a truck with gasoline or diesel in it, it would be just pulling up a truck with hydrogen in it and store it on site for refueling of a fuel cell vehicle. We need local transportation systems, need to be integrated, linked, low carbon. They need to be renewable energy based. These systems can be clean, safe, convenient, healthy. I've outlined in my book a concept of how one can do this. Rather than just totally being reliant on the automobile as we are now, and that also on fossil fuels, we can have a completely different low carbon system. Of course, doing it in existing cities is a challenge, just as in retrofitting a house that currently uses natural gas is a challenge. But I've shown here a concept how you would have everything linked to the house. Everything would be powered with renewable energy, and you would have either a bike or a pedway and transit systems that would link you to the airport and a high-speed rail station and a local train station and to a car park. So if you wanted to get onto the highway and go to your solar electric hydrogen service station, you could pull in, get your energy and take off. But within the city, you could have, and then linking you with low carbon um, transportation systems. We need alternative ways globally of transitioning our whole transportation system. This fossil fuel based highway system, I believe is we still need to use, but the fossil fuel component needs to be retired. We need to green our transportation. I think as Sierra Clubbers, we love to, we have big thing is in terms of going, visiting beautiful sites, ecosystems, and hiking and biking. And that's in the Sierra Club. That's big for Sierra Clubbers. But I've been visiting ecosystems that are getting devastated with climate change. I happened to visit India, the northeast part of India. The area is called Leh or Ladakh, which is currently in dispute. They're having some issues with China there. But anyway, Ladakh is a beautiful high plateau of 10,000 feet. And I visited it in January of, April of 2010. And in June of that year, that whole area was devastated so badly when the monsoon rains came. I was standing in the valley at a particular Sikh shrine in the valley. And at that shrine, the valley is miles, many square miles. And that whole valley had 3 feet of mud from landslides. I visited Kauai in February of 2018. And that summer, the island Kauai was totally devastated, where different parts of the island were disconnected from each other. So we really, you went to Alaska and only 98 out of the 100 glaciers are melting. What is there going to be left? There are going to be no glaciers left for our kids, So we need to green our transportation. You just can't say, okay, I'm going to go take off for a nice tour of Costa Rica or Europe. And, the amount of greenhouse gases you emit going by plane, and then the fossil fuel car you drive around visiting all these beautiful sites, does an enormous amount of damage. We have to green aviation and tourism. I've taken this up very seriously in my book. And so we really need all these options I'm talking on the right-hand side. Besides electrifying our road transportation, we need encouraging, cities that encourage pedways and bikeways. I think even national bikeways might be a good idea. And then we need to have both electric buses and fuel cell buses, as well as low, medium, and high-speed rail, crisscrossing the whole world. I think Spain has a good idea in terms of rail systems reaching to every village. Here to the left is the Redwood is Yosemite, sorry, and when we visited it in '85, and we have a duty to look after Yosemite, and the way you do it is to solve climate change. We need to transition out of fossil fuel vehicles. I'm not going to go through the details of it, but I have in my book a detailed plan of the 31 million vehicles we have in California. We have 1.2 billion vehicles in the whole world. All of them over a 30-year period need to transition, need to be replaced by electric, fuel cell, and other zero emission vehicles by the year 2050. And we need a systematic plan. California has 5 million, a plan to set up, to have 5 million electric vehicles by 2030 and 250,000 EV charging stations by 2025. The new administration is talking about similar things, the US administration. This needs to happen throughout the United States so that it becomes a reality. Governor Newsom has said that by 2035, all new passenger cars and trucks must be zero emission vehicles that are sold in California. But it's not just the new ones that get sold. We need to be replacing, just as we need to replace power plants with renewable energy power plants, we need to replace fossil fuel vehicles with zero emission vehicles. we need a massive expansion of our carbon sinks. Green carbon, which is global afforestation. I have a plan for getting 80 million hectares added to the US, and California needs to do its part of it. We need to talk about blue carbon, which is the ecosystems which are just off the coast, which are usually out of sight and out of mind, but which have tremendous value. We need to transform our agriculture so that our soil, instead of continuing to emit carbon as our current agriculture does by destroying the soil and overloading it with chemical fertilizer and so forth, we need to, get soil carbon up. And the other point that I'm not taken up seriously in my book is animal agriculture. Animal agriculture is really destroying, having a very destructive effect, both in terms of carbon dioxide, but also directly in terms of methane emissions, and it's deforestation and the amount of agricultural land that's used to feed animals and so forth. Anyway, that's a big issue all in itself. So I'm saying, a lot of people say that, you can do it all with trees and so forth. I'm saying that over a 30-year period, let's stop the destruction and start getting these ecosystems established and show we can manage them properly, so that from the year 2050 to year 2100, we can peak out in terms of carbon dioxide emissions and then start going the other way. Just like in COVID-19, you got to peak out the infections and start going down. With carbon emissions, the carbon dioxide concentration needs to peak out and start going down. We can do that in the latter part of the century. But I'm saying only rely on these ecosystems to absorb 6% of the carbon emissions. So we get our fossil fuel emissions down from what is close to 80% of our energy use down to only about 6%. Here I have concepts in my book of how do we do a forest in a way so that we can really manage wildfires, so that as we proceed, we need the forest as carbon sinks, plus other carbons, land ecosystems. But how do you have a layout design strategy? I'm an engineer, I proceed like that, but I think you have to put on the hat of an engineer and the hat of an ecologist and possibly the hat of a renewable energy person, and to solve these problems. And we need to afforest and reforest the earth, but you have to do it in such a way to minimize wildfires, to have a handle on them. And then what's going to happen as our rainy season comes in California now, the hillsides are bare, and if you get a heavy rain, you're going to get a landslide. My saying, what I'm advocating is we need a disaster risk reduction strategy for wildfires and for the whole world, actually, for all the climate-related disasters. And this will help, improve biodiversity. We are in the 6th most massive extinction of the species in our planetary history. We are losing species at a fast and furious rate. We need to reverse that. And this is our opportunity to do it. We can solve climate change, have plenty of energy, and we can, restore biodiversity. We can have a more beautiful California. Our coasts are beautiful, but we can expand coastal ecosystem. You talked about the California Coastal Commission. One of you did, and I recently educated myself on that. And I know that they passed a law in 2016, which assigned, $12 per parcel or $500 million over the next 20 years. That's a very good plan. A very good, I think, worthwhile activity. I still don't know how effective it is, but it's a move in the right direction. Here you can see, you can have mangrove swamps, you can have salt marshes, and you can have seagrasses. And we have salt marshes and seagrasses in the San Francisco Bay. And the salt marshes, by the way, Obama had the ARRA, one of the projects was to restore the salt marshes in the south part of the bay. And $6 million spent on that gave lifetime benefits of $60 million. And the seagrasses, we have eelgrass in Point Malate, just close to here in Richmond, and those are awesome ecosystems. Plus, another thing that we'll do is our fisheries are collapsing worldwide because of overfishing and because destruction of habitat in coastal areas. If we restore habitats, it will be good, and also coastal storms will have some buffer. They've in the Gulf Coast, they've been destroying these coastal ecosystems fast and furious and replacing it with beaches, and that is asinine. We need to be restoring coastal ecosystems throughout the Gulf Coast and the entire coast of California. Here is eelgrass, and I think I might be running out of time, so I'm going to just kind of go through some of these slides, but it's a flat-bladed grass, and there's, like I said, about the brown area underneath the eelgrass, it's about 4 meters deep or 12 feet deep of carbon-rich soil. That's per area, this coastal ecosystem can absorb more carbon than a tropical forest. So we need these. Elephant seals, we enjoyed those while passing through, coming along the coast of California. We have already, good areas, there are marine preserves and so forth. We need to vastly expand all of that globally. And I've actually said we need to do that not only along California's coast and the US coast, but the whole non-ice coastline of the whole world. We need to do that. The economic transformation is really important. You're going to get a lot of pushback, like you got the Yellow Vest riots in France. And of course, as you can see, with the current political situation, people are going to push back on you if you try to, say you're going to go beyond fossil fuels. So you really need two things. You need good options made available to people, and you need an industrial transformation. The United States needs good industrial policy, formal industrial policy. So does California. California has a CTP 2050, a transportation plan. The plan needs to be pro-employment and pro-environment. In one of my previous books called Rejuvenate America, which you can also see on Rejuvenating America, which you can see, I have a 4-point plan that I've outlined in there for jobs and economy, 4-part plan. And my book also describes the climate change aspect of how, what kind of jobs would be created in industry, in energy transformation. There are new types of industry, the new types of activities relating to energy efficiency and so forth. And it needs to be pro-employment and pro-environment. Big business is going to jump once they know that this is good business. Private investment is going to pour in. The challenge is going to be, how do you design this through community banks and municipally owned utilities and worker cooperative owned utilities? What kind of economic and ownership concepts can you come up with that make sure that the benefits are there to common people? So we need a just transition to convince the fossil fuel workers that we will help them make the transition. We just can't say, oh, just shut them down, you're evil, and we're not going to help you. We need the fossil fuel unions to be coming on joining us, because we'll show them a pathway. We need energy democracy, and this would be parallel to the US Green New Deal. We need concepts of eco-cities. Depressed communities in the United States can be transformed to these kinds of communities that are totally renewable energy dependent, are clean, recycle all their bio-waste, do use organic farming, use the concept of agroforestry, and have local ecosystems and so forth, and are still linked to the world through, and are attached to the grid. So they need not be left out. I think the politics in the United States would improve tremendously if we could look after our rural areas. Here's California disaster risk reduction. We need to do it for all of these, but we need to do these prepare, survive, and build better back. This is where Mr. Biden picked up the term build better back, because it's actually used for disaster. When the disaster passes, you build better back. Anyway, this is my website that I've set up, Brighter Climate Futures. Please visit it, sign up, put in your email if I don't have it, and I'll make sure that I continue to communicate with you. And there's also a Facebook page called Brighter Climate Futures, which I'm using pretty aggressively to get the word out through Facebook. um, anyway, the goal, as I said, was to provide a global energy economic transition to renewable energy with enough energy and solve climate change, rejuvenate ecosystems, and provide a good life for all. Book is available through Regent Press or Amazon. Please order the book or read the book. If you can't afford it, just email it to me, and I'll send you a complimentary copy. But the book is only a vehicle for disseminating in a systematic fashion my transformation plan. And so what can you do? This is a question you should ask yourself. I have a segment in my addendum of my book which talks about not only how you can reduce your own carbon footprint, like I've added solar panels on my roof, and it's a no-brainer. I am getting 10% rate of return on my investment if I show you the economics of it. So if you can afford, I've spent $8,500 and I got $2,500 back, made it as a tax credit, and plus my electric bill went to zero. So I would, if you were even thinking of it, I would blindly go for it, because 2021 is the last year with a 22% rate. And anyway, let's stop here, because I think I've taken up about an hour, a little over an hour actually, and let's go to question and answer. Sorry for exceeding the time.
Quite all right, Hari, this was great. We have a question in the chat. It says, how much energy will it take to refill aquifers with fresh water in California, nationwide and worldwide? This will be necessary to maintain agriculture for the food we need.
I think the falling water table and over withdrawal from aquifers globally is a big problem. California is relying, for example, we are relying here on Lake Mead, I believe, which collects snowmelt from the Sierras, and water is ported to us. We are a water deficit region, and most of California is actually. And we need to do two things. We need to use water harvesting very aggressively, number one, both to use water and to recharge our aquifers. And number two, we need to use solar renewable energy, to do as much of that as we can. Instead of using some of this water, that surface water that we are using, we should be using it, even if we have to pump it or whatever, use it to recharge our aquifers. There should be distinct recharge points by design for all our aquifers. But we have to be careful, because in certain agriculture areas, if using pesticide and herbicide, those pesticide and herbicides are going to end up in your groundwater. So you have to make sure that the water sources that you are water harvesting and you're charging with are clean when you're recharging your groundwater. A water deficit region like California, it's a big challenge, but I think we really should take up those two, water harvesting as well as we shouldn't let a drop of water go to waste. And plus, we should also be reusing retreated water, for agriculture. It's something that I think most of the world needs to do, and so should we.
Very good. There's another question in the chat. Is there a clearinghouse, so to speak, for environmentalists to exchange ideas with or coordinate with?
Oh, gosh. I don't think there is a formal clearinghouse. The Sierra Club provides a pretty good forum for exchange of environmental ideas. Um, as far as the clearinghouse, I'm not quite sure. Um, that's a question most probably that might not actually be a good activity to start up. I was planning to start up an open climate university um, later this year, which would be doing Zoom educational sessions on all the different aspects of climate change. But um, I think it might not be a bad idea to set up sort of a maybe like a climate week, climatepedia, Wikipedia, or a energy Wikipedia. That might not be actually a bad idea, but I'm not aware, other than organizations like the Sierra Club and environmental organizations that are active, like the Natural Resource Defense Council or EDF or Environmental Defense Fund and so forth. I'm not aware, but I'll put my mind to it. And I think the Sierra Club might be a good place for folks to visit the website, because Sierra Club does champion a whole bunch of environmental issues. But you won't find all the different kinds of information. You know, that on each one of these things, there's an enormous amount of information. And I have now um, maybe 1,000 files in my global warming book folder on just about every aspect of this, you know. And so I think this resource needs to be a good resource that would be very helpful, because no person, including myself, can be the be all and know all of all knowledge, you know. You can have somebody in the UK doing something really good that you are interested in, which, you know, that they need to post to this clearinghouse, and then you can access it. So some sort of open source activity sounds like a good idea. Thank you.
All right. And Maury has a question for you. Can you describe how solar can be employed at a desalination plant?
I'm not familiar with the technology of solar desalination plants, um, but I think that I used to, as a technologist, continuously think about different things. Um, um, you know, one um, uh, thermal concept is simply to be doing what a solar still does, which is um, when if you have a big salt flat, if solar um, um, evaporate, if you have set up an evaporation plant, um, you have a roof that basically acts is cool and sloping, and so water condenses on it and flows. That's one way of doing it. Um, I'm sure, and that's something maybe I need to educate myself on, is I'm sure that there are um, desalination plants that can use solar PV electricity um, to run desalination, and they would work once the electricity is available. They would work just like any other desalination plant. If you had a coal-fired desalination plant, uh, which ran made electricity and used electricity to run the equipment, I'm sure it could do that. But I think that's a really good one, and to follow up on, which would be, you know, how can one, in a very energy efficient way, um, do a solar desalination, especially that would be really good for California and even desert areas like Saudi Arabia, which have a deficit in water. But I'm sorry, I don't, except for my solar still example, um, I don't have a good example on how one can, you know, take seawater and desalinate it using solar.
All right, let's see. I am going to unmute everybody. And if anybody would like to speak up, raise their hand. Here's your chance.
learned why a lot of these fires started. Like some of them are just negligence. Like PG&E was not watching a power line. The C clamp failed. It was old. It had to be replaced. That's what started the campfire. And then the other fires were really burning hot because of the climate change and the bark beetle. That the bark beetle killed these trees, and these dead trees were laying around, and they were heating up, and they burn intensely and quickly. And that's why there was a big cloud, like a big cumulus cloud over the creek fire, because there was so many dead trees burning. And we should get some of the peat out of there and put it in community gardens. Some of those dead trees, chop them up, make peat, sterilize them a little somehow. I don't know how it works, clave them or something. So kill the bark beetle. The bark beetle's not dead yet. I don't know. How would you sterilize a tree and use it for an organic garden? Just steam it or something. Still there? I think I lost the connection.
No, you're okay.
Oh, but you're still here. That's great.
Yeah, there.
And the thing I know one of the fires started with. I forgot about the one fire. I know it started with because they cut trees, but they didn't cut the right tree. They cut a whole bunch of trees, but they left one dead hollow tree that was definitely fall in the wind, and it fell in the wind, and it started one of the fires. And I should start cutting the right tree, the dead one. And they could have left some of the live ones. Maybe they wouldn't have fallen, but the dead one was falling first.
Yeah.
And that's the bark beetle problem.
I think our whole situation requires a lot of attention. I think PG&E was negligent on maintaining some of the equipment, and did start some of the catastrophic fires, especially the Paradise Fire and the one that happened in Napa in 2017, I believe. But we have been having thousands of wildfires this year, and climate change in terms of heat and drought. If you get hot, dry conditions with a lot of fuel lying around, we need to look at this very seriously. And I'm saying, rather than just focus on one cause, I think we need to systematically take this up as a statewide and even a federal program, that we start now that rainy season is coming in California. We need to systematically say, okay, how are we going to prepare our forest areas for the next wildfire season? And what kind of reforestation and afforestation are we going to do so that we have breaks, and so that fire from one area cannot spread to another area? We have some kind of a break in between, or we have things set up so where fuel has been removed so that fire cannot grow from one area to another. And plus there are wildlife crossings. My particular diagram showed that you need to have wildfire crossings so that wildlife can escape. But systematically, I think we need to think about, clear cutting, for example, has been shown by the Battle Creek Alliance, and I show this in my book. Clear cutting, where they take a 20-acre lot, and if you look at it aerially, you can see it in my book. You have these 20-acre patches in the forest all over. And once they do that, the brush that grows up in those 20-acre clear-cut areas are a tremendous thing for fire forests. The Battle Creek Alliance north of us has been fighting the clear cutting for quite a while by the lumber companies. And so there's a whole range of issues that need to be taken up so that we systematically, not only our forests, but our land ecosystems, our desert ecosystem, and our agricultural ecosystem, our soils. We need a systematic plan. But for wildfires and reforestation, the issue is, we had 1 month's worth of smoke this year in the Bay Area, 1 month worth of smoke. We only had 1 week last year. And or that was the year when we had the Paradise Fire. And so it's been getting bad. And to prevent it from getting catastrophic throughout the world, even Australia, which had that catastrophic thing all along its east coast, and then the Amazon, there needs to be some real expertise put to how we can prevent forests from becoming carbon sources instead of carbon sinks, you know. I've said globally that we take up 80 billion hectares. The United States has lost 120 million hectares since the year 1620. I'm saying instead of the 120 million hectares, you restore back 80 million hectares in the boreal forests in Alaska, temperate forests, and the tropical forests. And so we restore, put something back, do it with agroforestry, urban forestry, and natural forestry, you know. So there's a lot that we can do with forest ecosystems.
Ari,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, and you're focused a lot on energy, which is a big part of the carbon footprint. I went to a talk at another Sierra Club program a while back when they had such things. And the speaker was Dr. Rao, and I think he's from the University of Arizona. I can't find it in his book. And he took on climate change from the what you eat point of view. And I just wanted to throw this out to people because I don't think there's any one answer to get us there. And I think I think we have to move a little faster than having a goal of 2050, but
Yeah.
maybe that's just what I'm hearing. And to put it in a nutshell, he went vegan because he's also from India and ate a vegetarian diet, but did eat dairy. And then he realized that the dairy cows live a lot longer than they produce milk. And still, they're still caring for all these cows and still having all the methane problems, et cetera. So he became vegan so you wouldn't need dairy cows. And his study went into if we all became vegan, we take all the land that we raise cattle on to eat. We don't need that land for them anymore because we're not going to eat them. Plus all the land that we raise feed grain on because we've been feeding these cattle to get them big and fat for us to eat. And you turn all that land into forest. Now I realize in the United States, a lot of cattle is raised on land that cannot be forested. The environment isn't right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of land where it can be forested. So you take especially the grain land and you turn, and then those new forests become huge carbon sinks and you get a negative pull of carbon. You're not putting anything in for that, the methanes from the cow or anything, but you are pulling a lot of carbon out. I just want to pass that idea along.
Yeah, I've talked to Dr. Sailesh Rao, and he has a book, earlier had a book called Carbon Dharma. He has a website called Climate Healers. And I spoke on one of their events. I fully agree with you. I think animal agriculture has an enormous impact on our global footprint. And but the place where Joanne, it has really taken off has been with factory farming of animal agriculture. When it became an industry, both in the United States and places like China, you have these enormous cattle stocks where they're basically being fed and to grow and then turn into beef or pigs or chicken, but they're not going on land. The land is being used to provide feedstock, whether it's soybean or corn, to these industrial farms. And Mary Chambers, so first thing is, I fully agree with you. there's not that much attention in my book on animal agriculture, but animal agriculture is really a big thing. And the reason in the United States people shy away from it is because meat eating is a big part of our diet. And but the thing is, there's been Beyond Beef book for a long time. But yes, you're right. Transitioning from especially industrial animal agriculture and reducing it consistently. So I have I have a meat tax. I've proposed 5 taxes.
Oh, okay.
One of them is a beef tax or a meat tax. And so I calculate how much that, and you use the meat tax firstly to reduce meal consumption, and then use it to do reforestation and so forth. So that's one thing I have. But the thing that it would do, when I listen to Mary Chambers, who's the head of, I believe, of the California Sierra Club. Wow, Mary, I thought I knew a lot about regenerative agriculture because I've read these books by Vandana Shiva called Violence of the Green Revolution. Vandana Shiva talks about biodiversity in crop types, how it's so important rather than monocultures that we have in agriculture. Plus, if you add to that, transitioning from that type of agriculture also. But what Mary pointed out and what people were pointing out is you can have some animal agriculture, but the farm can be such that the ecology of the soil and the plants and the grass in those pastures can be positively managed also.
Okay.
So there can be some meat or dairy consumption, but it has to be managed. And even like Dr. Rao shows this area where he shows a fence and one side has cows and the other side doesn't. The cow area is desert and the other area looks green and lush. And it's true for India, but if you could rotate grazing. So different people have these good ideas of how one can do regenerative types of animal agriculture. And those ideas can be used also, but from a health standpoint, both for personal health and planetary health, I personally, for example, have been transitioning to a plant-based whole food diet. I still occasionally eat meat and fish, but I've almost stopped consumption of milk. And it has enormous benefits. The food and drug industry and the food pyramid that has been taught to us is not a good one. For our own personal health, we have a group that basically is educating us on talk about a clearinghouse of information, how one through diet can get rid of all these diseases, heart disease, cancer, hypertension, diabetes. All of these can be gone if you change your diet. And so it's good for your health and good for thing. But like I said, you can do it as an organized transformation. If you try and fight it all at one time, you're going to meet resistance. And then, of course, the wrong kind of politics, as you're seeing in the United States right now, will happen where you get the wrong kinds of reaction from people. So if you do it in an organized fashion, transform your agriculture, make even the soybean that you're growing for feedstock, if you can grow it in a regenerative mode through organic agriculture, that would be a good thing. But you stop reducing meat consumption, then it will reduce the pressure on agricultural land and the forests, So I think that part of it is very important. But listening to Mary Chambers, I got so educated just listening to her. And Dr. Sailesh Rao, you listen to him and you get a similar education on animal agriculture and on regenerative agriculture. Green revolution agriculture is killing parts of India. It's terrible. And Vandana Shiva has pointed it out in The Violence of the Green Revolution. It has distorted things terribly. And the groundwater in Punjab is full of cancer-causing pesticides. And almost every month, a cancer train is going from the state of Punjab to Rajasthan because there are no cancer hospitals in Punjab. And the situation is terrible, you know. And so we need to transform agriculture globally, and animal agriculture needs to get reduced. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just say one thing? I
Sorry.
also love Vandana Shiva, but in terms of our statewide Sierra Club, Mary Chambers has started a sustainable agriculture committee for the
Mhm.
state. So state Sierra Club. So if anybody's interested in that, I think they would welcome members. And yeah, she is very, very knowledgeable.
Oh yeah, it was, I thought I knew a lot, and I got a tremendous education. And that happens in every area, that even areas that I have in my book, I open another, look at it and listen to another speaker, and that person knows more than I do. And I've actually reached out to people, experts on community microgrids, who wants community microgrids at Santa Barbara, Clean Coalition, or computer choice aggregation portion, which is new ways of having organized and different types of energy organizations, you know, community choice aggregation and so forth. So there's a lot to learn, and what we can do is from California, which have used these kinds of organizational structures, we can spread knowledge about them to other parts of the world, and maybe learn from others if others have done something good, you know.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just thank you so much for this very detailed and very thoughtful and positive presentation. And I wanted to piggyback off of what you had just said about the diet. And I was interested, I was going to ask if nobody had what the average person could do about these issues, what sorts of action steps you could take in your life, you know, either in terms of campaigning or in terms of taking direct action. And I'm also thinking, what would you say about the role of makers and builders and inventors? I know right here in California, we have an active maker movement. There are a lot of very creative inventors working on that. I was wondering where people could plug in terms of citizen science and or the maker movement in terms of restorative ecology, or, you know, in terms of working on ecology and climate issues.
Oh, those are good suggestions, Christina. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of personal benefit in doing things for yourselves in renewable energy, whether it be solar panels or electric car, but even energy efficiency. Just insist on the most energy efficient appliance that you can. If you're going to go get, you know, when I was in Chicago, I replaced my 90% efficiency furnace with a 97% efficiency furnace and a 16 SEER air conditioner. And my electric bill went down about 50%. And so I was doing things better for the environment and saving myself money. This is true. And my old fridge had a similar effect. When I replaced it, I would go to the Sears store and say, I want the most energy efficient fridge. And the guy would look at me like I was some kind of an animal from a different planet. And I said, you know, I need the most energy efficient fridge. And so I'd buy the most energy efficient fridge. So getting LED lights should be a no-brainer. You should replace all the lights. So you can do those things. But globally, the issue is such that, as you know, Ray, I would say that, and all of us, we are at a point of time where over a 30-year period, we really got to quantitatively make it happen. So locally at the city level, state-wise, nationally, and especially nationally, we need to start applying pressure. If you take a look at all the different things, the Sierra Club is quite active in Sacramento, in the state capital. We need to be active nationally and otherwise. We need to be applying pressure at all levels because I have pointed out, there's a limit to what you can do yourself. the transportation system consists of choices that make available to you. They need to make energy choices available to you, transportation choices, housing choices. These choices need to be made available to you, and only governments can do those choices. So the alternative kind of agriculture needs to be taught at agriculture universities, and the way it was taught, so these pressure, you need to apply pressure. Firstly, educate yourself and say, okay, we need a different way of doing things. Now government, local government, state government, national government, and global United Nations, can you please proceed? And then globally, we need to come up, that's what my thing is, we need a global plan. It might not be my plan, it might not be the Lamba plan, but we need a plan, and we need the world to agree to a 1.5C net zero plan by the year 2050. Because if we don't do that, we're going to get wildfires getting worse year after year, regardless of what other things we do to take care of wildfires and hurricanes and tornadoes. So globally, we have to, we run out of time. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little strong on this, but I realized after years of education that I thought I understood what I thought could be done. And just like I don't have a good section on animal agriculture, I don't have everything there. But I think what we have to ask for is, hey guys, nationally and globally, get your act together. There's no, and the thing is, the climate deniers will say, oh, you're going to be cut back, you're going to have to go, you'd be down into the Stone Ages and this and that. That's a lot of crap. You're going to have so much renewable energy. 1% of your land area can produce all of your solar energy. So let's get off that bandwagon. And so I have a chapter in there refuting all the false arguments of the climate deniers. And the new administration, the US, is going to be getting so much opposition from the fossil fuel industry and climate deniers. You have to be ready for it, but you have to overcome that if you have to have any hope of us getting over a 30-year period, replacing all your fossil fuel cars, replacing all your fossil fuel gas stations, replacing animal agriculture with agriculture, and repairing your ecosystems. And we have an opportunity. We're losing these beautiful species at an astounding rate. And so I said, okay, here's an excuse where we can use this as a way of repairing our ecosystems and give wildlife another chance. Because who knows, after the human species become extinct, if we don't behave ourselves, one of these species a few million years from now will evolve into something more intelligent than us. We have to evolve from Homo economicus, where we grab, consume, to Homo ecologicus. We have to take care of, each other, our animal and sister species, and our planet. It's the only planet we got. And so anyways, I just saw it as an opportunity to get our coastal ecosystems, and hopefully then our coral reefs. Our coral reefs are going to be bleached in 20 to 30 years with global warming. If, maybe faster than that. And so with coastal ecosystems, it would repair our fisheries. It would, we do have to do everything in a way that generates livelihoods. So if you have a forest, you have a way of people earning some income from it, whether it be tourism or some of the extractive sustainable forestry or forest products or something. You need livelihoods. So people have to eat. And, so if you show them a way of an alternative economy, you will have a much better chance if you do it systematically, Anyway, I'm just trying to convey to you my insight and passion. And since I have the bully pulpit right now, apologize if you think I'm being too outspoken. I just enjoy this, and I'm not looking to become rich or famous out of this. And I don't care if they solve climate change or the Lamba name is even mentioned or heard of or anything. I really don't care for that. I just would like things to turn around. We have to take our ship and we have to turn it in a different direction. I was in the railroad industry for 40 years with diesel locomotives for 30 years. And I say that we're heading for a crash, instead of a crash, we need to switch into an alternative path. It's not a question of turning back, an alternative path, which is more favorable for us, you know. We need to switch tracks.
I loved your comment. We need to change from Homo economicus to Homo ecologicus.
I love that.
Evolve, we have to evolve as a species to something that truly becomes wise and understands what the hell we've been doing all these centuries, which have been very good in terms of possibly creating a good life for us. But the technologies that we use must be regenerating life in future. You know, we have to become a wise species, and it'll be good for us as a species. You know, if we look after each other, I think COVID-19 types of things would be a lot easier to control if we look after each other. If you look after our animals, I think some of the things came from the interaction of wild animals with livestock in a market in China. And the livestock animal agriculture in China is out of control. And the amount of the wildlife meat they use is out of control. So those two explosive situations, you know, we have to look after our species, whether it be even our insect species. This virus is microscopic, you hardly see the damn thing. And yet it's brought our civilization to its knees. You know, we need to wise up and start even looking after our viruses, because the viruses, they might be good viruses and good bacteria. You know, our bodies are full of good bacteria. So bacteria are not bad, you know. It's just, you're right. We need to, and like I said, it's self-enlightened self-interest. It'll be good for us. We need a global compact, a little bit different, which undertakes our responsibility, you know. But anyways, solving climate change is an urgent issue because it'll give our civilization a time to recover, because global warming is just going to hit us like a hammer, and we need to solve it. Otherwise, we are dead meat. So
Literally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But this is good for my brain. You know, it's at my age, my mental health is important, and it's good. It's good to write books, good to interact with intelligent folks like yourself.
It's good for you to challenge us all.
I'm going to get rid of my refrigerator. I have a big dilemma with it. I put it outside to kind of save energy. I buy a nice energy efficient refrigerator and put it in the garage to save energy, but it's never powering on very much because it's like 40 degrees in the garage. And then I looked in the freezer and everything was mushy and thawed, and 35 degrees in the freezer because the freezer's not coming on. I think we need new technology.
Yeah, you know, amazing thing that struck me about fridges is, look at the fridge. It's taking heat, it's putting heat into your house while it's taking heat out of the inside of the fridge. So, and then you might be in a climate and you're using air conditioning at the same time. I would have thought for just an ecological design that you build the fridge on the wall and you're cooling the inside of the house, but you're dispensing the heat out to the outside, you know.
This time of year, you need heat in your house. And so if you had the refrigerator in the house, you could take advantage of that heat that you're taking out of your food.
Right, that's true. In a cool climate and in winter, like in Chicago, it was. But I'd have in Chicago the air conditioner running at the same time as I had the fridge running strong, and so I try to come up with all these different ideas of how I would redesign the kitchen, and also I almost had a patentable idea of having a little composting facility that would be similar to an incinerator, which would take all the mush from your food and have a little composting, kitchen connected composting facility. So being an engineer, I keep thinking of hundreds of those kinds of things.
Yeah, as an engineer, I worked as the facilities engineer for winters at McMurdo Station, Antarctica. And I found a lot of systems that were very inefficient. For example, the power plant control room had a heater at one end of the room trying to keep the room warm, and it had an air conditioning unit at the other end of the room trying to keep the room cool, and they were fighting each other.
Yeah, I think that in California, we have a lot of very good things. We have industrial scale composting, where these guys, where our green bins have all our, we take bio bags because we have gone so much organic. We are using a lot of compostable bio bags, and those go into our green bins along with the yard waste. But there's an industrial scale composting facility for our counties locally. And when I talked to the gentleman, he said we have these 8-foot high rows, which have to be watered because it gets so hot inside, but that take all our yard waste and kitchen waste and compost it and make it available as fertilizer. So things like.
Is he collecting the methane off of that compost process to burn for energy? Or is it in the atmosphere?
They might be doing that. I think the water treatment facilities are a big candidate for taking the methane and using the methane, rather than letting it escape. And the livestock farms, which have manure lagoons, instead of letting the methane escape, need to also use the methane so that we can. That's part of my methane emissions reduction plan, because the amount of methane escaping from our landfills and from our manure facilities is enormous. And we need to cut down on methane. Now, if you convert methane to burn it and use it, emit it as carbon dioxide, that might not be bad, because methane has a global warming potential that is, or can trap more heat than carbon dioxide can. So
correct.
It might be a good conversion, and that's why maybe biogas to hydrogen is not a bad conversion, if you get methane going to hydrogen and carbon dioxide. But the ideal, anyways, those are the methane, and then nitrous oxide would be reduced quite a bit if we get rid of our fossil fuel vehicles. The nitrous oxide, those are the three gases: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Those are the three gases that give about 98% of our global warming, and 2% is from these refrigerant chemicals, chlorofluorocarbons, which
we've actually made good progress on our chlorofluorocarbon problem. The ozone hole at the South Pole has been reduced in size or has disappeared entirely at this time.
Oh yeah. The ozone thing, we went through where we discovered that the ozone layer was being destroyed by the chlorofluorocarbons, and the chemical industry fought it for 20 years with what they call the Tobacco Institute approach, until we sent 2 expeditions into the South Pole, and they flew airplanes into the ozone hole, and the chemical equation showed that if you flew into the ozone hole, you get chlorine monoxide. Ozone plus chlorofluorocarbon gives you chlorine monoxide, and sure enough, inside the ozone hole, they had chlorine monoxide, and the chemical industry couldn't fight it anymore. They fought it for 20 years. And so finally, even a non-environmental president like Ronald Reagan had to sign, the ozone warming treaty, ozone layer treaty. But then the other thing they did is they substituted chlorofluorocarbons with hydrofluorocarbons, which had lower ozone depleting potential, but it had a higher global warming potential. Now they're trying, so they found that those are trapping more heat than the earlier chlorofluorocarbons. So now they got to get rid of the HFCs also, because they're causing global warming. So we need, they used to use ammonia in the old days in fridges before they came up with these magics of the, better living through chemistry that Dow Chemicals sold us on with these chlorofluorocarbons, and destroyed our ozone layer,
Yeah, ammonia as a refrigerant had a lot of advantages, even though it did have some disadvantages, like the high pressure requirement.
Right, and of course you have to watch the toxic inhaling effects of ammonia. But we handle ammonia now, enormous of quantities. In COVID-19, the folks have realized that they really that ammonia. These about 150 countries in the world import ammonia, or they import fossil fuels in order to make ammonia locally. And all of a sudden they realized that they were having difficulty getting these supplies, and they were costing more, and the ammonia, agriculture was being adversely impacted because they were using ammonia for agriculture. And, so, 800 million metric tons for hydrogen and ammonia currently being emitted, more than the emissions of Germany, are too much. If we could go to green hydrogen and green ammonia through solar energy or wind energy, that would be also a big step. So
I'm going to jump in here for a second. Usually if we were in person, I would thank, and I will do this now, just like we would be in person. Thank everyone for coming. I noticed that many people have already signed off, and I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Hope you join us on January 8th, talk about the conservation efforts of big cats. And I don't want anyone to feel like they have to get off. It's Harry. You can stay here. Harry, you can stay on all night as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to stay up that late, but I just wanted to make sure I had the opportunity before too many people left to say thank you very much for this insightful talk, and really very thoroughly thought through, just not a piecemeal, little here, a little there plan to combat global warming.